Hey, Tiffany Rose here. So I wanted to hop on and talk about for a few minutes the best way to run your day. So in this mortgage industry, it is a beast. It can be so crazy with phone calls, emails. Your days can run you instead of you planning and being prepared and running your day. So a big thing that we need to talk about is, first of all, no matter what, before I even go into the daily ideal perfect workday, setting boundaries all across the board. So if you see emails, if you feel like people are thinking that it's urgent, if they call you 50 times in a row, you got to figure out how to get a handle on that and not let it bother you. If you truly feel, instead of getting insecure and defensive, if somebody's calling about disclosures and you've already explained it to them, you've got to make sure that you train people how to treat you. So if you don't feel in your heart of hearts that it's an urgent matter and it could wait, you put it on your notepad on the sideline and you handle it later when you can. If it's urgent, you do what's called swallow the frog. I don't even remember the story behind it, but I just always remember that's what it's called. Swallow the frog. It takes absolute priority. Otherwise, it's going to take up rent in your head and space, and you don't have time to do that. Oh, there's my cute little puppy back there. Isn't she cute? Okay, hopefully she's not distracting you. All right, so when you start your days, first thing, when you wake up in the morning before the kids, if you have kids, wake up and before everything gets going, you want to do a 15-minute focus time or 15-minute, some people like to call it date with God. So you meditate, you breathe, you journal, you look at your calendar, and you just take a moment to prepare. And nobody should start work without being prepared in the morning. If you don't prioritize things on your calendar and you kind of have things blocked out, time blocking, batch work, I talk about that in some of my other trainings. So go ahead and look for it on YouTube. But you want to make sure you have that focus time where you feel like, I am ready to start the day now. So when you get into the office, remember, I'm talking to specifically mortgage lenders, mortgage loan originators. If you're a realtor, if you're an insurance broker, if you're in any kind of entrepreneurial sales, then maybe you can loosely follow this and insert things that fit your industry. So you want to do your team call. If you don't have a team, you at least want to make sure that you're connecting with the appropriate people to start your day. So when I get into the office, I look at the market. I want to know what the market's doing. I have people that are going to be asking, Tiff, are we locking today? Sometimes we have a price change around 10 a.m. If rates are smoking and everyone's locking, they will cut that off. So you want to make sure that you look at the market and you have the lock talks with everybody. Never lock alone without asking the client first, because they will find a way to make it wrong. If rates go down the next day, then you're responsible. Let that be their decision. So you work on locks first. Then you go work your pipeline backwards from closest to closing to least closest to closing. So I work on my recordings and my fundings in the morning. I make sure processors, underwriters, everyone's clearing conditions, because recordings and fundings have a cutoff. So the funding cutoff with us is 11:30. We have to make sure that all hands on deck, because we have people, remember, if it's a purchase situation, then you have keys and movers and people that are transferring houses. You got to make sure you meet those deadlines. If it's a refinance, sometimes there's a lock expiring in a purchase as well, but sometimes there's a lock expiring. So you got to handle that first. Then you move on to conditions. So conditions are loans that have been approved. You're working on your conditional approvals. You're dealing with making sure your processor is on top of the borrower conditions. If you're the one as a loan officer, if you don't have a team yet and you're the one communicating borrower conditions, which, by the way, I recommend if processors are more introverted by nature, if you don't have an awesome kick butt processor that you're comfortable talking about borrower conditions, and you take on that, put on your big girl, big boy pants, and you call the client and you deal with the conditions. So super important, because when you keep that moving, you don't leave that just sitting, because then the client ends up in limbo. And every day that a loan doesn't close, there's another chance that something could happen in the process. So that's conditions. Next, you want to work on approval status. You're checking with processors and underwriters. Hey, what's the turn times? It's been over 24 hours, been over 72 hours. Is there any holdups? Check for suspense notifications. Then you want to move on to submissions. Remember, we're working backwards. You're moving on to submissions. I should be looking at the camera this whole time. So submission setup. You're doing your cover letters, your 5 C's. You're not just saying on your cover, remember, do a cover letter. If your mortgage company is not requiring you to do a cover letter, I don't care. You still do that. So don't throw something against the wall and hope that it sticks. That's the worst thing that I've ever seen loan officers make that mistake on. So you're going to do your cover letter. You're going to do, don't just say excellent credit. I looked at their credit. They have inquiries as follows. They have prior addresses or current addresses as follows. Do a letter of explanations that coincide with that, or at a very minimum, if you're waiting for the client to explain things to you, acknowledge it and put it in your cover letter. You're going to go over income. Where's the down payment coming from? Assets, which part of it is used for down payment, which part is being left over for reserves. Do they need reserves? If it's a jumbo loan, remember 12 months, 24 months, sometimes 6 months is a reserve requirement. You're going to want to make sure that you use maybe their 401k account, deducted 60% off the top or 70% off the top, whatever that guideline is that applies to your company that you work at, and make sure there's enough months, because if they have 200,000 in the bank and they're buying $1 million house and they're using a lot of that for down payment, maybe there's not enough left over. Maybe you forgot that they own a rental property. You need another 6 months reserves if it's a jumbo loan in that county for reserves. So take a look at all that, because when you're doing your cover letter and your 5 C's, you're jogging your memory on, oh shoot, I forgot to ask about that. Wait a minute, there's another address. Do they own another property? Let me look at the tax returns. Let me go on the Schedule E and see what's going on. Do they own another business? All these things are going to happen where the underwriter doesn't have to catch it. So if you're doing your cover letters, you're going through your normal review to make sure that it goes as best as possible. So then you're going to go on to pre-approvals. So pre-approvals are calling the client, connecting with them on Zoom, making sure that you looked over new applications that's being completed, making notes on maybe they didn't put in a 2-year work history, or maybe they just moved from self-employed to W-2 or vice versa. You got to catch those things and go through that. End of the day, leads, they take priority. Don't wait till the end of the day and say, oh, I was working backwards like that girl Tiffany Rose on YouTube told me to do. You call leads. It's like somebody at Guild said, duck on a Cheeto is what her team calls it. You call within 30 minutes. That client is interested. They've made an inquiry on your Facebook ad or emailed you, or they've called you, texted you, a realtor referred them over to you. You're going to show them some respect and you're going to jump on that, because that means if they picked up the phone and called you, they want immediate. The world is filled right now. We have the attention spans of a goldfish because of social media and that consumption of content. If you don't hook people in, like, I think it's now 3 seconds, it used to be 8 seconds, it's now 3 seconds, they're moving on. So 30 minutes even is far too long to wait to call a lead. You call leads, you drop everything, unless you're dealing with something like a lock expiring or some crazy situation. Of course, there's exceptions to every rule. So make sure you call those leads. Now, regarding checking email, the last few things I want to talk about is email, voicemail, and we talked about the swallowing the frog. So email, check it in the morning, make your little to-do list, figure out how that weaves into, is it a pre-approval, is it a lead, is it a closing, and is it urgent matter, is it a FYI, is it something you can delegate to somebody? Do your email. Don't look at your email until noon again, and then 4:00 p.m. or before you leave for the day. Give yourself enough time for if you're leaving at 5:30, you don't want to check your email at 5:30 because you'll be staying a lot longer. So give yourself a little bit of time to handle some things. And if it's not urgent, write it down on your calendar for the next day. Get organized, okay? But email is the devil. I cannot stand email. So all my team knows, they always lead and they say, hey, you probably haven't seen my email yet, but here's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I haven't, because I'm out there doing emails are red time most of the time. So there's red time and there's green time. Green time is when you're selling, when you're active, when you're communicating, when you're putting social media, when you're engaging, when you're actively doing a podcast or figuring out how to get that funnel going. Red time is just when it's not making activities that's going to make you money. Email is a time suck. Even scrolling on social media, if it's not for the benefit of wishing your clients happy birthday or connecting something that's going to monetize, then it is red time. So remember that. Voicemail. My voicemail, honestly, I always leave it full, because who leaves voicemails anymore? First of all, my teenagers said, who does that? So I leave it full. Plus I get so much spam, it gets filled up anyways, organically. I say on my voicemail, I check email at this time, this time, this time, and text me for faster because spam fills up my email. That's all they need to do. If it's a realtor, if it's urgent, text. You're going to see it faster than email or voicemail anyway. So I hope that helps. Please make sure that you breathe throughout the day, that you get up, you walk around, you show that gratitude. Don't get bitter. This business can run you down, and that's not what I want for you. So do your date with God and your focus time in the morning, and you will find that it is a huge, huge change in the way you run things. So I hope I helped. Please like and subscribe to this, and I will see you on the next video.